Good evening, everybody. The Trump era well underway. 70 days until the president-elect is sworn in. Mr. Trump spending much of this day in the nation's capital, meeting with President Obama and congressional leaders. The day began with a variation on a little pomp and circumstance at the airport. Trump's aircraft receiving a water cannon salute at LaGuardia Airport. The salute from the Port Authority at LaGuardia. It's a gesture typically reserved for Air Force One, world leaders, military officials. The salute also extended, of course, for the heroic pilot, Chesley Sully Sullenberger. Then it was all about business. A meeting between President Obama and Mr. Trump, slated to last 15 minutes, went an hour and a half. Both the president and president-elect expressing their desires for a successful transition of power. And this was the first time that they had met face-to-face.
I just had the opportunity to have an excellent conversation with President-elect Trump. My number one priority the coming 2 months is to try to facilitate a transition that ensures our president-elect is successsul.
Could have gone on for a lot longer. We discussed a lot of different situations, some wonderful and some difficulties. I very much look forward to dealing with the president in the future, including counsel.
Including counsel. Well, after that, Trump headed to Capitol Hill, where he met with Speaker Ryan and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, two establishment Republicans who were, at best, reluctant to get on the Trump train, at worst, actively working to undermine his candidacy. But today, Speaker Ryan said he's excited to roll up his sleeves to get to work, and Trump says he discussed immigration, health care, and, quote, big league jobs with McConnell. We'll be talking about Republican unity going forward and the new Trump administration with former Reagan White House political director Ed Rollins. Also with me tonight, radio talk show host, best-selling author Laura Ingraham. Our top story, we're now getting something of a glimpse into just what the Trump administration might look like. BuzzFeed News getting their hands on the president-elect's preliminary short list of surrogates and advisors slated for top cabinet positions. For Attorney General Governor Chris Christie, former Mayor Rudy Giuliani, and Senator Jeff Sessions. Sessions also listed as a possible head of the Office of Management and Budget or Secretary of Defense. Retired Lieutenant General Mike Flynn, another name on the list for Secretary of Defense. Up for Secretary of State, former UN Ambassador John Bolton, House Speaker Newt Gingrich, and Sheriff David Clark, the possible Secretary of Homeland Security. Ben Carson, a possible choice to be Secretary of Education. Carson also being considered apparently for Secretary of Health and Human Services. For Treasury Secretary, Mr. Trump's choices include businessman Carl Icahn and banker Stephen Mnuchin. Names for Secretary of Commerce include that of former Governor Mike Huckabee. And the only name for Chief of Staff on the list, RNC Chairman Reince Priebus. So a lot of speculation being built and some perhaps indication as to who will land which jobs. We want to bring you up to date, of course, first on the latest election figures. They're still being counted. The president-elect so far has won 279 electoral votes to 228 for Hillary Clinton. 3 states still have not been called. Michigan, New Hampshire, still too close to call. Arizona still counting votes. Hillary is ahead right now with the popular vote just over 280,000 votes more than Donald Trump. The Democratic Party having a bit of a meltdown over it all, though. They're reportedly considering Congressman Keith Ellison and Howard Dean as possible Democratic National Committee chairs. Joining me now, Laura Ingraham, editor-in-chief of LifeZette, host of one of the country's most popular radio programs, The Laura Ingraham Show, also Fox News contributor and extraordinarily sagacious when it comes to matters of politics. And you're in the den of it all now. I have to say the most spectacular picture, the president and president-elect. I mean, they seem to, if pictures may lie as well as tell, be as good as 1,000 words, Laura, but they looked like they were right glad to meet each other.
Well, that might have been a slight exaggeration, but I think Trump was almost overly complimentary to President Obama, but nevertheless, it was a very nice sentiment. President Obama did not say anything personally complimentary about Donald Trump. Donald Trump's like, well, he shared with me all of his great accomplishments or something like that. And like, I'll be looking forward to getting his counsel.
Called him a good man. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, it's like, whoa, no, what about let's back off on the counsel. We know we don't want too much counsel from Obama, but I'm kind of kidding. It makes people.
You're kind of kidding. You're not kidding at all.
No,
Come
I don't
on.
I don't want Obama anywhere near the White House again, except for maybe, fun parties every now and then. But look, I think President-elect Trump, I still can't believe we're saying it, but President-elect
has a ring to it, doesn't it?
It does sound President Trump. It's easy to say. But President-elect Trump, I think, has really gone above and beyond in reassuring the nation that he takes this very seriously. And he is, very excited about working with Paul Ryan in Congress. And he's going to get
I'm sorry, say that again.
Priorities through.
He's very what?
He's excited about working with Paul Ryan on his agenda, not Paul Ryan's agenda. It
takes Paul Ryan 2 seconds to get to better way. Everybody walks around going, what the hell? Did the speaker just say something about a better way?
Well, the hashtag better way, that's his
that's
plan of ideas. But no, it's quite something. After a couple of weeks ago, we heard Barack Obama say that Donald Trump was inhuman.
Right.
And un-American and unfit for the presidency, and then shaking his hand in the Oval Office and showing him where the bathrooms are and all the rest. So quite a picture.
Well, it's also a pretty picture in a way, too,
Yeah.
in a number of ways. Good to see. Now, I've got to tell you, I am such a base and petty man that if Paul Ryan had done to me what he did to Donald Trump, my hands would, without any power to resist at all, would be clutching at his throat. And I have to say, Donald Trump was very presidential. He actually may be seeking to attain the level of saint here in what he has tolerated. I have to commend the president-elect. He did extraordinarily well in constraining himself and being generous of spirit and heart. It was amazing.
Well, that's the person. Yeah, that's the person I know. Though I mean, it doesn't surprise me because that's the way he is with his employees. That's the way he is with.
Well, his employees would never betray him like Paul Ryan did. Laura, come on.
I understand that, but I also think when you watched him, and I was at the Hilton, right when we walked out on election night or morning, the day after, whatever it was, 3 in the morning.
Right after he was elected.
Yeah, you saw his eye. He teared up a little bit. I mean, They all on that stage, whether it was Jared Kushner or the president or Steve Bannon.
He's sitting next to the man who betrayed him, and he is still generous of spirit and strong of heart.
Well, Lou, in the Bible, we know it's harder to be nice to the people who are hurtful to you than it is to be nice. It's easy to be nice to the people who like you. It's much harder to pray for and work with people who maybe made some mistakes along the way. And Donald Trump made some mistakes too, but Paul Ryan.
I'm going to have to go through those passages with Robert Jeffress. Pastor Jeffress is going to have to reschool me on that one a little bit.
But look, the most important thing, and Trump knows this, like, why should Trump pick a fight with Paul Ryan now? It's Trump's party. Yeah. Paul Ryan knows that. If Donald Trump doesn't want something to get passed through Congress, it's not getting passed through Congress. Paul Ryan's not going to go home and campaign at campaign time and say, I defied Donald Trump. How well do you think that would work after Donald Trump, without much help from Paul Ryan, actually won the state, contrary to what all these so-called experts on television were advocating and predicting? So I don't think Paul Ryan wants to go home and tell his constituents that he defied Trump. With
both houses of Congress, soon the Supreme Court, as he starts moving his justices toward confirmation, this is going to be Trump's government in its entirety, something we haven't seen. And I have to say, we're 2 days into a transition period, 70 days away from him being sworn in. But I have to say, he's off to one heck of a great start, don't you think?
The first 100 days, I do, and I think the first 100 days of his presidency is going to be chock full of initiatives, rescinding executive actions that were unconstitutional or just outrageous. He's going to move fast on this Obamacare redo, whatever we want to call it, and he's going to move very quickly on the immigration priorities that help get him elected. Build that wall. I hope they'll work on it.
What did you say there, Laura? I missed that.
Well, I think he's going to work on his priorities.
Did you say build that wall?
Yeah, he's going to build that wall,
Okay.
and I think that ultimately he's going to have to grapple with these other immigration issues, not amnesty, but reducing the levels of overall immigration, which have been.
Yep. Laura, we can't go through the whole 100 days here tonight, but you know what? I agree with you. We're up to a heck of a start. Kind of feels good, doesn't it?
It does feel good. It's the first time I felt this way about a Republican president, probably since I was in college when Reagan was reelected.
Those were the days, and these are as well. Thanks so much, Laura. Great to have you with us. We're coming right back. We've got a lot more straight ahead. Stay with us. PAC strategist, former Reagan White House political director, veteran of 9 presidential campaigns that he led, the dean, the legend, Ed Rollins. Good to have you here.
Thank you very much.
I've got to get your reaction to, this has been a day of great generosity on the part of the president-elect.
It is. The only concern I have, and having watched about 5 administrations, Democrat and Republican, be put together, the personnel decisions that he makes are the most important decisions he will make. And he's very rushed with 70 days because the people become policy.
Right.
And so the fact
that's a wonderful expression.
And they do.
In government, by the way, and business.
So what happens when you appoint governors? And the governors you mentioned there, several of my friends, what have you, they've been governors. They basically think they're used to running things.
Right.
Richard Nixon appointed 7 governors in 1968. Turned out to be a disaster.
Right.
Governor Bush appointed Christy Whitman to be the EPA administrator. Disaster. Couldn't race to get out of there to get on the Today Show the next day and badmouth the hell out of the Bush administration.
Right.
So what I would want to make sure is you're putting these guys who ran against you, is you have to sit down with them and they agree 100% with what you want to do in that department. Because otherwise they're going to go do what they want to do in that department. The second thing that's important is what happens here is you're trying to put your 13, 17 cabinet members together, and the town basically will have people who say, well, we don't want a cabinet post. We want to be the assistant secretary for policy. This team doesn't know that the assistant secretary for policy long-term has...
And he's been thinking about this a long time. He's got trusted people who've been thinking about it. Will he make all the right decisions? No one does. But it's so important to have his people in the right place.
His people.
You know what else is interesting, too, is Obama seldom held a cabinet meeting. Hopefully, this president will hold cabinet meetings and will have people there he wants to hear from rather than push away.
Well, if you don't have cabinet meetings, what happens is the cabinets have so much responsibility delegated to them that they go off and they run their own fiefdom. And I can go back example after example, Democrat or Republican.
There are three folks that I'm very interested in, and that's certainly Rudy Giuliani.
Great choice.
Jeff Sessions,
Great
senator.
choice.
From Alabama, and of course Chris Christie. I think those 3 people he should hold close to him as he can have. I would just like them to be with him because they've been soldiers for him, and I think he can trust them imminently.
Giuliani is a perfect choice for Attorney General. He's been in the Justice Department. He was the number 3 guy in the Reagan administration, and if he hadn't run for mayor, he probably would have been Attorney General in the Reagan administration. He knows that system. And obviously, he will appoint all the U.S. attorneys and all the rest of it and do it very, very well. Obviously.
What do you think of the idea of having his son-in-law in his chief of staff? What do you think about having the family close? Because it's a family business he's running. He's done pretty well with it.
You've got to be careful of nepotism laws. There's a very specific nepotism law. Well,
they'd all have to take cuts and pay for crying out loud. There wouldn't be
what you could do is you can put them in as a volunteer and let everybody know as the chief of staff for $1 a year type thing. I think it's always important to have somebody near you. It's just he's not going to put his stuff into the foundation.
Honestly, what I was thinking is I would want them there as counselors for him at the very least. I don't know if I'd want to push them away out to departments.
Oh, I wouldn't put him out to department. I mean, I think whatever he needs, he ought to get. The only point I make is just you have to be careful in your personnel choices. And the recommendations, having lived through this during the Reagan years, the Nixon years, what have you, You don't say, Lou Dobbs, you're my Secretary of Defense.
Wait a minute.
And
that sounds right.
And I'm going to
me.
send.
Secretary has a ring.
And you go over and pick your assistant secretaries and undersecretary.
Yeah.
What you say is, Secretary Dobbs, here's your team. It's the Trump team.
Yeah.
So, and it often happens.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he, like I said, I mean, I think that those kind of particulars he's worked
Well,
out.
we'll see, Doc. We'll see. We'll argue this.
You really think defense for me? Really?
I think you'd scare the hell out of every foreign country.
Every country in the world.
They would say, please give us to Mr. Trump, but we don't want to deal with that Dobbs, that mad bomber.
Yeah, I think you could assign every department that possibility. So, Ed, thanks a lot. You just ruined my political career just before it was even born. Thanks so much, Ed.
Thank you.
Be sure to vote in our poll tonight. The question is, do you believe Speaker Ryan's betrayal of the Republican nominee should disqualify him from holding any leadership role? Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. We'd like to hear what you think about this. The president-elect seems to have a very clear idea of what he wants. Follow me on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Like me on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram at Lou Dobbs tonight. On Wall Street today, a Trump presidency, a Trump rally extending into a second day. Stocks going to record-breaking levels. The Dow surging 218 points, closing at another new all-time high, the 10th record this year. And man, without question, this is a Trump rally. And you heard it here first. The S&P up 4 points. The Nasdaq down 42. Volume on the big board. Again, heavy trading. 6.4 billion shares. What is going on? The Dow in 2 days post-election up 2.6%. That's the fifth best post-election gain in history. And Disney today reporting disappointing earnings. Disney hit by lower advertising revenue, higher cost in particular for ESPN. And a reminder to listen to my reports 3 times a day, coast to coast on the Salem Radio Network. Up next, Donald Trump wants to get to work and improve the lives of millions of Americans.
We're going to lower taxes, as you know, and we're going to fix health care and make it more affordable and better. And we're going to do a real job for the public, and that's what we want to do, and that's why we're excited.
Well, the Trump agenda, the subject of my commentary here next. Stay with us. We're coming right back. A few thoughts now as the president-elect begins a transition from the ultimate political outsider to the most powerful job in the country, from tycoon and campaigner to statesman and commander-in-chief. It's been 513 days since Mr. Trump first ascended down that escalator at Trump Tower last June to announce his candidacy for president. And now, after nearly 60 million people have voted for him and the vote count in the general election is still underway, Trump has gone from businessman to Republican nominee to now president-elect. And he went to work immediately. He's scheduled to meet with Japan's prime minister, as I said, next week. He's agreed to meet with Mexico's president during the transition period. He's already talked with leaders from Egypt, Israel, Britain, Canada, and President-elect Trump also talking with leaders in our nation's capital today, meeting with President Obama for the first time ever, before he held meetings with Speaker Ryan and Senate Majority Leader McConnell. Those talks focusing on immigration, health care, jobs, top Trump priorities in the first 100 days of his administration. Mr. Trump also making big plans for his first day in office, including term limits for members of Congress, renegotiating NAFTA, pulling out of TPP, and the removal of criminal illegal immigrants from our society. Trump planning to accomplish all of that with help from stalwarts like Senator Jeff Sessions, Rudy Giuliani, Governor Chris Christie, Dr. Ben Carson, among others, all being considered for cabinet-level positions. Our president-elect has demonstrated his work ethic throughout his life, through his many accomplishments, and to the entire nation throughout the year-and-a-half-long presidential campaign that he's just run and won. And the fact is, he will need all of his now legendary energy and ambition to repair so much damage that's been done by his predecessors. And yes, I made that a plural, not a singular. But America has always been a country that seems to get lucky. And we are lucky to have Donald Trump step up for the most important job in this country, and to start as quickly as he can what we know will be the hard, difficult work of repairing a country that's been torn and that is tired, ready, though, to begin the hard work of coming together and moving this nation ahead. With all the work that he must do, January 20th can't come soon enough for all the rest of us, and not for Donald Trump, not for the American people. And we should thank God Almighty that we have such a leader. The quotation of the evening, this one from George Bernard Shaw, who said, "Progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. Change is in the wind." We're coming right back. You know, there's still a little ignorance in this country. The food delivery company Grubhub forced to backtrack today. Its CEO put out a letter suggesting pro-Trump employees should resign. The CEO, Matt Maloney, wrote to the employees saying, quote, "While demeaning, insulting, and ridiculing minorities, immigrants, and the physically, mentally disabled work for Mr. Trump, I want to be clear that this behavior and these views have no place in Grubhub." Well, I think he should start with himself. That was about as ignorant and insulting a letter as one I've ever seen to employees by any CEO. And friend, I think it's adios for you if your board has got any guts or decency at all. And by the way, the stock down just about 4% on the day, and that ought to grab everybody's attention at Grubhub. They issued a statement as well saying they accept employees with all political beliefs, no matter who they voted for. Now, that's quite a statement for a publicly held company to have to put out. The man, if he had any self-respect, he has none, or he wouldn't have written it, but the board should get rid of that fella quick. Joining me now, the host of the Chris Plante Show on WMAL, Chris Plante, attorney, Fox News contributor, Ebony Williams. Great to have you both here.
Thank you, Lou.
Ebony, what a day in which Donald Trump was president-elect for the first time meeting President Obama.
Yeah.
They were nice to each other. Nobody, even
no blood.
talking of this. It was great. And the president being gracious to two folks who were no help to him at all, Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell.
You're right about it. Look, I actually was very pleased. I charged President Obama yesterday on Outnumbered with doing just that. If indeed he's the leader that some of us voted him to be, he had to do this today, Lou. He had really no choice in my book. This was a last opportunity for him to demonstrate leadership at this level, and I think he rose to the occasion. I think President-elect Trump was equally gracious. I also say this, I wasn't this surprised by how well this went today as some, because they'd never actually met. You know how hard it is to viciously hate someone you've never actually met? So I think, again, today...
Well, it's easier than somebody you have.
No, but I disagree, Lou. I think, it's very easy to kind of concoct stuff in our heads around people. Yeah, but you know what? Sitting here at the table looking, I can't imagine having negative feelings around
I think you and I are agreeing violently on this issue, but...
Totally.
But let's
see what
take
Chris
it up with
Plante
Plante and see if we can get in a fight with him. What do you think?
Barack Obama's being very gracious in public. He's dying inside because he knows that this is the end of his legacy, and it's a catastrophe for him. Always refer to the Godfather in situations like this. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Barack Obama will be nice in public and then find some way to have somebody slip in the shiv every chance they get as soon as the lights are off, because Obama despises him, and he despises the fact that Hillary Clinton lost. She was going to solidify his legacy.
But it's over. It's over.
Oh, it's the KKK. He's the Klansman. He's worse than Senator Robert Byrd. Obama was just saying this 2 weeks ago. And now, look, he's a politician. He's putting the best face on things. Here's another thing that's got me going today. They are breaking
We're here
their
for
arms,
therapy. I tell you, we are here for therapy.
They are breaking their own arms, patting themselves on the back, congratulating themselves for inventing the peaceful transition of power. I don't know if you watch this, but on a couple of the other networks, they're so proud of Barack Obama for facilitating the peaceful transfer of power, like we just invented this or something.
Well, they have
congratulating
a pride deficit now, so we may have to be generous and forgive them there. Their hyperbole.
Don't do
at
that.
This moment. I won't do it.
I will say
worry.
this.
No chance.
I think Barack, so Chris's point about Hillary Clinton, I'm one of those cynics that think that he was in no way looking forward to giving the keys to the White House to Hillary Clinton on a visceral level. Truly, I believe that.
Well,
but better than Trump.
I'm sorry?
But better than giving the keys to
in
Trump.
in one way, Chris, but there's a part of him probably.
You all are riled up about this, aren't you? I mean,
Donald
Trump and his team have just gone through the White House. They've got the keys now. They've only got to wait 70 days.
Almost.
They're going to be big old trucks rolling up there, and things are changing plenty and quickly.
Yeah. I was wondering when the Clintons were planning on moving back in, whether they were going to move back in all the furniture that they stole the first time they left.
Ooh, so shady.
You are gracious in victory. That's one of the things America loves about you. In that regard, Trump extremely gracious, extremely generous with both McConnell and with Ryan,
who I think he had more to have beef with. Like, I think it's understandable, whatever you think of President Obama, he took the position he had to take. These two, McConnell and Ryan, they didn't have to do that to him. And I think that was Donald Trump being absolutely gracious to really kind of soften the palate for many people that have a lot of beef with those two right now.
You get the last word here, Chris.
Yeah. Well, look, it was a rough election season, but Paul Ryan was concerned about hanging on to the House. McConnell, Turtle Boy as I call him, concerned about hanging on to the Senate. They hung on to the Senate.
You're a man
they hung on to the House.
Deep, emotional. I mean, there is just a well of sensitivity that resides within.
You're right. I'm a very sensitive individual.
Petty tonight, Chris.
But look,
a little bit.
But look, they held on to the House. They held on to the Senate. We have the White House. Now let's get some stuff done.
Not only did they hold on to it, Chris, that a lot of people got elected or got reelected on the coattails of Donald Trump the other night.
You bet. You bet.
Hear,
Absolutely
hear.
correct. Yeah.
And, you know, and actually, Ryan, to his credit, acknowledged that.
Good for him.
McConnell, what do you call him? Turtle Man?
Turtle Boy. Yeah, Turtle Boy.
Turtle Boy.
Yeah, Turtle Boy.
Okay.
Oh, God.
I know, yeah.
That's hysterical.
Rough.
All right, I could have left that out.
It's all right.
Humble, Chris, humble.
Chris Plant, we thank you very much. Anthony Williams, we thank you both.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Lou.
Breaking news now. The Associated Press has just declared that Donald Trump won the state of Arizona 2 days after the election. That puts another 11 electoral votes for Trump in his column. That puts him at 290 electoral votes to Clinton's 228. The states of Michigan and New Hampshire remain still too close to call. Trump is leading in Michigan, and in New Hampshire, Trump trails. Again, the margin in both states, 0.3%, and that winning Michigan, where he is now leading with 96% of the vote counted, if he were to win it, that would put him over 300 electoral votes. Joining me now, Christian Adams, former U.S. Department of Justice attorney serving under both Presidents Bush and Obama. Chris is now the president of the Public Interest Legal Foundation, and great to have you with us.
Hey, Lou.
Let's start with the issue of pardoning Hillary Clinton, which has not been resisted entirely by the Obama administration. What do you make of the idea, and would it be a good one?
If I was a Democrat, I'd be praying that President Obama pardoned her maybe on Christmas Eve because it would put the whole thing to rest. What does Obama care? He doesn't have any fallout from it. He's going to be out of office. It'll probably make him more popular among his crowd, and the people who already don't like him won't dislike him anymore. So, I mean, I don't know why he wouldn't.
Well, one of the reasons is that the Trump administration, in the person of Rudy Giuliani's saying, please don't do this, because that should be a matter for the incoming administration to decide and determine. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, they never respected that demarcation line from Bush to Obama. But, you know, Lou, one of the funny things is a person has to accept their pardon.
Wait a minute. Who did Bush pardon was so egregious?
Well, remember, Holder reawakened a number of investigations that had been put to rest under Bush. So there's not been, during the last transition, any respect for what the previous administration did or not. But a pardon has to be accepted. I take your point,
but I think what they're asking for is quite different from the administration. They want to make those adjudications themselves.
Yeah, but this is an administration that doesn't respect that sort of tradition, is my point. Right. So a pardon has to be accepted by Hillary. And that's really funny if you think about it. She would have to basically say,
I can hear her laughing now, Chris.
That's right. So imagine what a pardon might look like. You know, people have actually gone to the gallows, Lou, in the United States because they won't accept the pardon. They refuse to admit that they did anything wrong. And so I think that's
stubborn. That is stubborn.
That's stubborn.
I don't think she would be quite so adamant in resisting it. What would be your judgment on the likelihood of a pardon by Obama? Well, it'd have to be Hillary. It would have to be Bill. It would have to be a broad pardon, would it not?
Whom crimes not committed. Yeah. You can pardon somebody even if they haven't been charged.
The entire syndicate, I think, is the way that might be put.
That's right. Yeah, the whole syndicate, all of them. You can pardon someone even if they haven't been charged. I see almost no reason why Obama wouldn't do that except the one you raise.
So there still exists these emails. There still exists the foundation and all of its attendant elements of what became a cartel. How do you word that pardon for all their crimes that they committed, thought about committing, and may commit at some time in the future? I mean, it gets a little broad, doesn't it?
Yeah, they could always copy President Ford's pardon of Richard Nixon. I mean, he did the same thing for anything they may have done.
I mean, that is remarkable. Trump meeting with Paul Ryan today, all seems forgiven, and Trump is setting a tone of generosity, cooperation. Your reaction?
Now, he's defying all of the people who thought he was something different. He needs Congress, Lou, to enact much of his agenda. So this is off to a good start.
So you said he's defying. Are you in favor of the way in which he's proceeding? Are you laudatory or are you critical?
Oh, laudatory. I mean, he behaved like a great gentleman today. Yeah. He behaved like a president-elect. And I think that that's going to pay dividends in the long run.
Well, very quickly, these people that are being put in the street by George Soros, is there criminal culpability for and liability for George Soros for funding this kind of outrageous violence in our streets and demonstrations and costing taxpayers millions and millions of dollars? By the way, it's also bad form, George Soros.
Yeah, and there's been video of attacks on voters for voting for Trump, beating them up. And, you know, is George Soros personally liable? You'd have a hard case. He builds in many layers between his bank account and the street thugs, many layers of organizations, 501c3 charities that never get investigated by the IRS. So there's probably a hard case to make, but he is behind it.
All right. Appreciate it very much. Chris, good to have you with us. Christian Adams. Lou. Up next, President-elect Trump has promised to be a president for all Americans.
For those who have chosen not to support me in the past, of which there were a few people, I'm reaching out to you for your guidance and your help so that we can work together and unify our great country.
The former vice chair of the Trump campaign's diversity coalition, Brunel Donald Che, is my guest here next. I can't wait. I'm always so eager to talk with her. We're coming right back. Stay with us. In our online poll, we ask you, with the victory of President-elect Trump, are you more confident, more optimistic about our country's future now? 92% of you said, yes, you're more confident, more optimistic about our future. Joining me now is one of the people who helped propel Donald Trump to the White House, and she is, every time I've ever talked with her, optimistic. She is powerfully confident. The former vice chair of the National Diversity Coalition for Trump and attorney, Brunel Donald Che. Brunel, great to have you with us. Congratulations on the victory of your candidate. I've got to tell you, you have been a delight every time. Whenever my spirits were flagging, they seldom do, but when just talking to you, you've always picked me up. I know you picked. And so I'm just delighted to see you and congratulate you on the win of Donald J. Trump, President of the United States.
God bless you and God bless America.
God bless you too, and I'm with you on America.
Thank you. I receive it.
All right. So what happens now? Are you you were an attorney? You practice in South Chicago. You've been a volunteer throughout this. You haven't been paid. You've been doing it on your own, right?
Yes, I've been a volunteer for the National Diversity Coalition for Trump. I wanted to fight for the nation. I wanted to stand up for the poor and the middle class and for our inner cities. And I was led by the great, wonderful God to get out here and campaign and stomp for Mr. Trump as well as Mike Pence, our president-elect and our vice presidential-elect.
Well, and are you going to work in the administration? Have you been asked to work in the administration, or are you planning to work in the administration?
You know, if my president-elect and his